everyone, Carmen here. Today I'm going to show you how to format a blog post, not only to make it more readable and enjoyable for your audience, but also to help it with SEO and make it rank higher in Google. So I'm here in WordPress on an actual article that I published pretty recently, and I'm going to run you through exactly how I formatted this long piece of content and all the little and big things that I do to format content for my own blog, but also for my copywriting and content writing clients. And you can learn more about these things on my blog. I'll put a link in the description. I also have a content marketing and copywriting course that's completely free. I'll put that in the description as well, and you'll learn more about these things. But just to begin, number one is with the headline. As David Ogilvy once said, you've spent 80 cents of your dollar once you've written the headline because it's the first thing that people see and it's the first thing they're going to click and that's going to draw them into the content itself. So there's a lot of different ways you can actually make a really good headline. One of the things you can do is make it benefit driven. You can spike curiosity or you can ask a question, and you can learn about how to write really good headlines in the courses that I have available. But to begin with this blog post, the one thing I wanted to do was make it benefit driven and practical. So the main keyword I was targeting was how to repurpose content, and that's the main topic that I'm targeting. And because I showed 10 ways to repurpose content in the blog post, I added that in the title, but I said robust to make them more practical and also to let the readers that what they're going to learn is very effective. And then I added like a pro at the end because I've been copywriting and content marketing for many, many years. And not only are these my strategies, but these are strategies that some of the best content marketers and brands use. So right away, the reader knows what they're going to learn and why it matters and why it's going to be different than anything else they're going to read. So naturally, the intro comes next after the headline. And you can also think about it just as important as the headline itself because it's the second thing readers read. And it's going to give them an introduction to the article, what to expect, and it lets them know if they're in the right place or not. And if you don't have a really good introduction in place, even though it might be the perfect article below, then you're going to experience a high bounce rate, which means people are coming to your website and leaving to go read another piece of content. So what are some good things you can do in the intro? Now, one thing I like doing is using a lot of data because it backs up the points I'm talking about. It makes it more authoritative, more clear, and it just makes it way more interesting. When you see those intros where it's just big blocks of text, it's kind of intimidating, it's a little boring and vague, but when you have a lot of hyperlinks going on and meaningful data to back up what you're talking about, it makes it a lot more interesting. So I also like to ask questions that relate to the reader's position and situation. You can see that I talk in a very personal, friendly, and first person point of view and tone of voice. It just makes it a little bit more casual to read, less intimidating, especially if it's a more complex topic. And I also use a formula that's known as PAS, or pain, agitate, solve, where you address one of the reader's pain points. So in this case, it's getting the most out of their content marketing and thinking that they can just publish content and be done, which isn't the case. And that's why I go into agitating it and saying if they want to get the most efficiency out of their content campaigns, they have to repurpose, and then positioning the article as the solution and what I'm going to teach them. So overall in the intro, what I want you to do is use more data. I want you to clearly talk about what the readers are going to learn and the remaining content when they read it, and irritate the pain points and the symptoms of what they're experiencing so they know they're in the right place and that you're going to solve those with the content. So once your intro is written, then you have to go move on to header tags. And header tags are the header 1 through header 6 tags you can use on WordPress. Now, if you're on Wix and Weebly, if you have your own CMS, these will be also easy to use, but they help you section the content. So you'll have, for example, header 2 tags for the bigger pieces of information and sections, header 3, header 4, and you use those to block off certain ideas and just to organize all of your thoughts versus having giant walls of text and sentence after sentence. So not only does it make it more readable for the readers, but it's actually a really big part of SEO because Google wants to make sure that your content is easily readable. So you can kind of think about anything you do for the readers is also what Google wants and vice versa. So make sure that in all of the parts of your blog post that you have those header 2 tags. You can see that I have one for when should you repurpose content, best ways to repurpose content, and then I use header 3s to go under those little other ideas that fall under that main header tag. Now, also depending on your writing strategy and who is actually reading your blog, you may want to try shorter sentences and paragraphs. It makes it easier to read and it breaks it up. Now, I use a very casual tone, so you can see that I break a lot of grammar rules and I write as I speak, and it just works for my audience and what I'm trying to achieve. But for example, if you have a more academic or your target audience is more academic, that's what your ICP is, your buyer persona, then by all means write in a manner that makes them comfortable. But I would recommend just considering in some degree breaking up your sentences and paragraphs to be a bit shorter to make it easier to read. That brings me to my next point, which is using visuals, images, and media. Not only is it a visual relief and it just makes it a bit easier on the eyes, it gives a lot of context. So in this blog post, I used one of the copy blogger articles as an example of a title that's really good and how they actually transformed that blog post into a slideshow presentation that got a lot of views, but it wouldn't have been the same if it didn't actually show a picture of the original blog post and the slideshow on slideshare.net. So it adds a bit more context. It makes it easier to read. It makes it more fun. So make sure that you're adding screenshots, graphics, charts, any kind of visuals to add that bigger impact to the content. Okay, next up is using internal and external links. So as I mentioned with the data previously, that would imply that you're linking out to another source. So you can see in this section, I linked out to an MIT statistic that I thought was really good in this infographic section. So one, it offers more depth and information for the reader. Once again, that's what Google loves. They want to see that you're linking out to more authoritative sources and that you yourself are a good source of information. And you don't have to be the expert yourself. You can be linking out to other institutions and studies. So make sure you're doing that. But you also want to link internally to your other pages and content. Now you can also see in this section here, I linked to one of my own pieces of content. And one, this keeps people on your website for longer, but it's also extending more useful resources for the readers. Now we can also do is optimize this for SEO by using a very specific anchor text, which would be the keyword you're targeting on that page that you're linking to. Now this was content marketing trends, the article I was linking to from this. And sometimes you don't want to do exact match anchor text. It's okay to deviate, and it's good just to switch it up. You don't want to be too strategic with the anchor text because Google can pick up that you're doing something. But make sure that overall you are linking to other content of yours, maybe other pages, products, service pages, anything that's contextual and that makes sense. Don't just link to things for the sake of it. It does have to be relevant to what you're talking about in the piece of content. Okay, so that brings me to the conclusion. So the conclusion area is actually a very important part of a blog post. It might be just as important as the intro and the headline. And it's not just a place to say goodbye. It's actually a place to tell the reader what the next best action would be for them. Now, in many cases, it could be contacting you for services, buying a product, getting a free consultation. So what I like to do is just sum up the main points and tips of the content. Sometimes I'll even put an infographic down here to summarize everything that I make with canva.com. And then I'll typically have a call to action if anyone wants to use my copywriting or content writing services. So that helps me generate inbound leads. But overall, make sure that you're clearly giving the readers a summary of the article, but also telling them what to do and getting them one step closer and further in your funnel. Now, since I'm on WordPress and I use the Yoast plugin, which is completely free, I recommend that you get it. It's really easy to edit the title tag and meta description of any blog post, which is another very important part of formatting your content because you're not just formatting it for the reader, you do want to rank higher in Google. Now, there's essentially the title area, the slug, which is the URL, and the meta description. Now, I believe I have an image that was saved as how to repurpose content. So WordPress will actually append something else to the end, like to, saying that's the second file that they found with that name. So even if I deleted it, it would just go back to this. But typically you want to optimize the slug to be your main keyword. Once again, make sure that it makes sense and you're not just stuffing it. But if you can have the main keyword in the URL, it just helps readers and Google pick up on what the page is about. The title will always be the title that you set originally. Now with a blog post, I typically remove the other little extra stuff here in the SEO title section, just so once again, it doesn't pick up on my name and random things like a brand name, maybe for you. And it can confuse Google spiders when they're crawling the page because they see the title and the main keyword, but then there's all these other things appended to it. So that's a little SEO trick that I've used. And then your meta description is that small section that appears underneath. And you want to make sure that you're just writing a good length. On Yoast, it gives you a green, yellow, or red indicator if it's too long or too short. You want to fall obviously in the green range, but you want to give a nice summary and call to action. So I'll usually say learn, discover, etc. how to do this. So in this case, I say learn how to repurpose content in 10 different ways to gain XYZ benefits. So use a call to action, tell them what they're going to learn, and tell them why it matters. What's the benefit of learning about that topic? Now, if we're on WordPress specifically, there are a few different things you can do on top of this. One is you can set some categories. So for example, this one would be blogging and copywriting for me, and this helps organize the content on my website. I could also add a tag such as copywriting, and then there's the featured image which pops up on WordPress, but also Google will pull this when you're sharing content on Facebook or other social networks. This also plays into OG data, which you can look into along with schema markup and different complex SEO topics. But it's good to have a nice featured image. You can also do an excerpt if the theme you're using has one on the blog section of your website. It isn't always needed. I don't usually use it myself. But overall, guys, just to recap, formatting a blog post begins with a really good headline. Try to make it benefit driven, use calls to action, ask questions, use exact numbers, spike some curiosity in the reader, and make it practical. They should know exactly what they're getting into just by reading and clicking the headline. And then in the intro, what I want you to do is to use more data to back up any claims, and do that actually throughout the entire article, but it's usually good in the intro to capture attention. Ask questions about their experience and their problems. Clearly explain exactly what they're going to learn by reading, and then use a call to action to tell them to follow along and keep reading the article. Throughout the article, I want you to use header 2, header 3, and header 4 tags. If you have to go beyond that, that's good too, but just all in all, separate your ideas with these header tags. Once again, not only does it make it more readable, it's really good for SEO. Link to external resources such as case studies, stats, graphs, anything you can just to back up what you're talking about and to make it more credible and to extend more resources for the reader. And then also link to other pages and posts of your own to keep people on your website and engaging with you and getting deeper in the funnel. Use media and different types of images and visuals to add more context and information, but also as visual relief just to make it a bit more entertaining and fun, especially if you're writing long form content. Nobody wants to read just 3,000 words. It's nice to have some visuals in there. And then I want you to write a really good conclusion that summarizes all the major points of the article and then presents them the next best action. This might be to sign up for a newsletter, call you for a free consultation, download a lead magnet, or maybe purchase a product or service. If you want free copywriting courses, free marketing material, and other cool resources, head over to my website. You'll be able to find them on there. Thanks for watching. Feel free to drop a like, leave a comment, and I'll catch you in the next one.